Welcome to Discourse Politics, everybody. It's nice to know I'm not crazy because I just spent the whole weekend trying to figure this out. What you're seeing on the screen is a source of inspiration, I guess, because all weekend I've been trying to wrap my head around what I know to be true, which is that somewhere in the mid-60s, Joe Biden supporters have said they've already voted. 32% of Trump support said they've already voted. But here's the thing. When it comes to on election day, what we're expecting at least a 2-to-1 turnout for Donald Trump over Joe Biden. If that's true, then Joe Biden's not even on track to win the popular vote. And on Friday, I was planning on making a video and releasing it Saturday morning without even discussing the popular vote. But then as I dug deeper and deeper into the popular vote, my head started to explode, to be honest, because I could not figure out for the life of me what's going on here. Now CBS is saying, which obviously I was watching Tim Pool, which was just released minutes ago. But as I was watching Tim Pool, finally the mainstream media is reporting what I've been trying to figure out since Friday. If 66% of Joe Biden's support has already voted and 32% of Donald Trump's support has already voted, Donald Trump has won this election. I don't know how to put it other than that. And so we can go through the numbers right here. So let's go through the numbers. Most of these come from, and I'll just go through them real quick. Most of these come from Elect Project GitHub is where a lot of these numbers come from. The NBC forecast and Target Smart, Target Early. So this is all sort of a conglomeration of this data. You might recognize sort of this portion. I've also created this portion so you can, and I've been playing with the numbers. So you can go with unaffiliated voters that have voted thus far. If you change that number, it'll output a different number. You know, you can change the voter turnout. How many of the mail-in ballots that haven't been sent in yet? How much more do you expect to come in? In the state of Arizona, it's only 10% because they send a ballot to everybody. So I'm not expecting much more, but I put 50% in other states. How much of the mail-in ballot of the remaining mail-in ballot do you think is going to go towards Biden? It's supposed to be about 16% towards the end was the projection. And then election day turnout is supposed to be at least 2-to-1. 33 to 67 would be kind of a good guess of what's supposed to happen on election day turnout. The thing is when I input that into my model, even if I give Joe Biden 70%, so I give him 70% of the unaffiliated. If Donald Trump's support comes out as in 2-to-1 on election day, as they're expected to do, he's going to win Arizona by 1.21% based upon the model that I've created. He's going to win Florida by 1.37%, which is 138,000 votes. He's going to win Michigan by 7.64%, which I don't think he's going to do. So I'm going to have to play with these numbers a little bit. But still, he's projected if Donald Trump gets 2-to-1 on election day, which he's supposed to do, he's going to win Michigan by 7.64%. He's going to win North Carolina by just 0.75%. So by just 0.75%, he's going to win North Carolina. By Pennsylvania, he's going to win by 319,000 votes. That's 4.8%. He's going to win Wisconsin by 5.93%. Now, one of the things I think is going to happen is in swing states, it's possible, it is wholly possible that this number is more, maybe closer to 45. So let's see what happens when we do that. If we do, if it's something like 45%, then Biden's going to win by 2%, 45 to 55. But that's absurd because poll after poll indicates that Donald Trump, by a 2-to-1 margin, he's going to carry election day. And if he does, then Biden's not even in contention to win the popular vote. And let's go to what happens when you go and look at those numbers. So this is part of the spreadsheet, which, by the way, the name of the spreadsheet is Early Voting and Election Day Turnout for 1:30 November 1st, 2020, which means that this was updated at 1:30 p.m. with numbers from all the websites at 1:30 p.m. on November 1st. Okay, so that YouGov poll that we keep talking about, this shows Donald Trump losing by 11 points, 54 to 43. Within that YouGov poll, we have this page here. It's page 45 out of 318. On page 45 out of 318, people who have already voted. So the question is likelihood of voting. Of the people who have answered they've already voted, 50% said that they've already voted. And of that the people who have already voted, 64%, basically that CBS poll we were looking at, which says 66%. And then this one says 42% of Donald Trump's base has already voted. Okay, so this is an even better poll for Joe Biden. Not only is he 11 points ahead, but it shows the base that 42% of Donald Trump's base has already voted. Definitely will vote. Joe Biden has a group of 31% left, and Donald Trump has a group of 55% left. Keep in mind, this is a worse poll for Donald Trump than the CBS poll that we just saw on Tim Pool's channel. This is what I've been spending my weekend on. I know I'm a nerd, but this is what I've spent my weekend on. I've been trying to figure this out. How does Joe Biden win this election? I don't see it happening. I can't find a way. Because when you start playing with these numbers, it looks really bad for Joe Biden. So we have 54% to 43% already voted. 64% of Joe Biden's base has already voted. 41% of Trump's base has already voted. Definitely will vote is 55 to 31. Now, we can analyze this in a couple of different ways. We can use the already voted and project a number based upon already voted. And then we can do a combination of already voted and definitely will vote, which is why I created two different groups here. And we'll go through those in just a second. Independent voters, according to that poll, 47% are going for Biden, 36% for Trump. Now, when you take these two numbers and you actually work them out, extract the numbers, it's 57 to 43. That's the split of independents, is 57 to 43 in early voting. Using Elect Project GitHub, which is the first website we looked at when I was doing the 3 places where all the votes are come from, they did not include in their vote totals any state that does not register by party. So this is only states that register by party, which is why this is only about 53% of these numbers here. Now, what this is the NBC News Politics 2020 elections. This is Joe Biden's votes, 37.2 million. This is Trump's votes, 31.2 million is projected. 16 million, they're not sure how to allocate those. This is the Target Smart numbers. So NBC News uses the Target Smart numbers, but they don't make as many assumptions. They use more raw data from Target Smart than the projected votes that Target Smart puts out. Now, Target Smart was a left-leaning organization that was created to help project how early votes were going for liberals. So this is probably not a Trump-leaning website. They say they're nonpartisan. So even take it at face value, whether they are or aren't. My point is they're probably not leaning to make Donald Trump's numbers look better. That's my point. So these are the numbers that they have allocated thus far. Biden has 39 million votes. Trump has 33.7, and 8.3 million are unaffiliated. Let's try and extract the final vote count using these numbers. This is why I didn't publish a video on Friday or Saturday morning or Sunday morning, because I wanted to try and figure out as much as I could about this number, because these numbers don't make sense. They really don't. They point to a Trump landslide, is my point. And no one else is projecting a Trump landslide. So it's making me nervous. It's making me nervous because no one else is projecting a Trump landslide like this. These numbers are staggering, okay? What is the formula here that we're looking at? Using these numbers, the formula we're looking at is the number of votes for Biden, and this is on the Elect Project GitHub, so it's only the states that register by party, okay? So this is only about 53% of the votes that have been cast so far. In order to find 100% value of a whole, when you know the percentage of something, is you take the number that you know and you divide by the percentage. So in this case, it's 20.5 million plus 57% of the 10 million unaffiliated voters or independent voters. So that number, which is around 27 million, you divide that number by 64%. And the reason you do that is because in order to get the whole, you divide by the percentage that you know. So when you do that, that number ends up being 41,286,997 votes to Trump, which is 44,158,538 votes, which would be a total of 48.3% for Biden and 51.7% for Trump. So you can start to see why this is troubling when the CBS poll says that 66% of Biden's base has voted and only 33% of Trump's base has voted, because when you run the numbers, they don't look good for Biden. Now, since this is only 53% of the vote, you would then divide both of those numbers by 53%, and you would end up with 78 million to 83.8 million. So this is 160 million votes. The logic would state, at least historically, the higher the turnout, the better it is for Democrats, because, and I'm not making fun of Democrats, kind of I am. Low information voters tend to vote Democrat. Mainly because it's harder to be a liberal if you're trying to enact policy. It's harder to be a conservative when you're just trying to mind your own business. because you're constantly reminded why you shouldn't be a conservative, whether it's late night television, advertisements, sports, whatever. You're constantly accosted. You have to know why you're a conservative to be a conservative. Let me put it that way. That's why low information voters tend to vote Democrat. To make a final point about why low information voters vote Democrat, because it's much easier to say something like, doesn't everybody deserve health care? And at first glance, the answer would be, yeah, sure. Why wouldn't somebody not deserve health care? Then you have to ask yourself the secondary and third and fourth questions, which is, what are the costs? Can I keep my own health care? What about the 85% of Americans that already have health care that's working good for them? Is the quality of care going to go down? Once you start asking those tertiary questions, then you might come to a different conclusion than, yeah, sure, everyone deserves health care. I'm straying from the point. My point is that usually the higher the turnout, the more better it is. But something strange is happening here. And I think CBS has caught on to it, what I've been trying to figure out all weekend. The numbers don't get any better in any of the models. So let's go to NBC. Same thing, 64%, 41%. Same formula. This number plus 57% of this number divided by 64 outputs 72 million votes, or 43.7% for Biden. It outputs 93 million votes for Donald Trump, which is 56.3 million. In Tim Pool's video, he's saying that CBS is freaking out because CBS is basically saying, well, if Donald Trump's base turns out, only 32% of Trump supporters voted in their projections, which is even worse, 66% to 32%. And looking at these numbers, they don't look good for Joe Biden. There's no way around it. Absolutely no way around it. 64 to 41. Keep in mind, if we use 66, heck, let's do that. Let me show you how bad this would be. If we use their numbers, 66 to 32, then these numbers get absolutely abysmal. So something, what I'm saying is something strange is going on here. Something absolutely strange is going on here. So just using the numbers that they had on their screen, they themselves must know that if Donald Trump's base turns out like they're supposed to, and he's going to get 2-1, at least a 2-1 margin on election day, he's going to win this handily. But let's go back to these numbers and let's finish all the scenarios, okay? Using the NBC News, Donald Trump would win 56% to 43.7%. Using the early target smart, Donald Trump would win 57% to 43%. So I said there were two ways to look at this. Well, we could say that instead of using the 64% as a predictive model, let's talk about the people who said they will definitely vote. There was 31% of Biden supporters and 55% of Trump supporters. The way to figure that out, how this equation goes, is it's number of people that have voted for Joe Biden plus 57% of independents plus this number times 31% divided by 64. And the reason you do that is because you're saying what's left is 31% divided by 64, which is about 50% of the vote. So 50% is left of that total number is what's going to come out for you, is what's left to come out for you to vote. So that would be a total of 36,352,000. This is getting closer to what it's supposed to be, of what is being projected by this poll. And if 55% of the vote is still left out, well then 55% divided by 41% is, I think, something like 137%. So 137% of this number plus 43% of this number is 31,763,000. This would be more in alignment with what is being projected by the mainstream media. That being said, when you extract it further out to all the states, whether they have an affiliation or not, when you extract that out, again, Trump wins 53 to 46.8. Trump wins 55% to 44.1. Now, what are some possible fixes to this? Well, one thing is this is the independent vote, but this is the independent vote for the entire voting period, so to speak. So early vote and on election day vote. So maybe the early independent vote went heavily for Joe Biden, so we need to adjust these numbers. Well, here's what's interesting about this, because I just did this earlier. What if we gave Joe Biden every single independent voter? Does that win him the popular vote? According to, the 64-41 turnout, which, by the way, it's even worse for the CBS poll, the 66 to 33. So let's give him 100%. So in states that don't allow unaffiliated voters and no one's extracted the data to see who's voting for whom, it looks like a complete and utter landslide. But let's look at the data where it's actually trying to account for every single vote. In this instance, it's 83 million to 76 million, 52.2 to 47.8, which looks about like something that might have occurred based upon polling. But that's 100% of the votes for Biden. And look, he doesn't even win the Target Smart. The Target Smart data where they have allocated these votes, if we give all 8 million votes, these unaffiliated, where Target Smart couldn't figure out who they think the person voted for, whether it was Trump or Biden, if we gave all 8 million to Biden, he would still lose the popular vote. And that's just based upon this number here, which again, it's even worse for the CBS poll. But here's the thing. This to me looks almost plausible. 74 million to 82 million. That looks pretty plausible to me. Here's an even more plausible one. Joe Biden still loses, but 71 million to 73 million. It would be slightly less than it'd be 5.5 million less than the 150 million vote projection, but this looks pretty freaking plausible. This doesn't really look that plausible, but I mean, at this point, I don't know what to believe. Because again, we have, Tim Pool's talking about it. CBS is talking about it. When you look at this, the YouGov poll, I mean, I don't know how to reconcile these numbers. And that's what I've been racking my brain over this whole entire weekend. Tomorrow, I'm going to put out my official numbers. So I'm going to give you exactly how much. I'm going to start playing with these unaffiliated voters, maybe mess a little bit with increased turnout depending on the state, how many mail-in ballots I think are going to work in each state, or how many more are going to come in. Some states are higher than others. But after playing with all these numbers, I'll have an official prediction, a final election prediction that's going to give the vote totals, what percent I think each state is going to go by, how much I think the person's going to win by, and by what percent. And you can download this yourself. And when I put my video out on Monday, I'm going to ask people to, in the comments below, come up with their own predictions. Each state percent that whoever's going to win it wins it by, and by how many votes. And so you can play with all these numbers yourself. Yeah, stick to where there's the highlight, and you should be good to go. And then we can all make predictions. But yeah, I'm a nerd. I literally spent all weekend trying to figure this out. I still can't. My logical conclusion is, ironically, the only way Joe Biden can win the election is if the polls are wrong. I know that's kind of strange, but put it another way, either the polls that say that Donald Trump is way behind are wrong, or the polls of how people are voting are wrong, because how people say they're going to vote and who's already voted is not matching up with this data and what's already been turned in. Yeah. So this election is going to be fun. I have gone from saying I think, Donald Trump's about a 60% chance to win to I'm all the way up to probably 75%, to be honest. Make sure you download the spreadsheet. It's early voting and election day turnout for 1:30 November 1st, 2020. So you can start making your predictions. And then when I do my prediction tomorrow, you can follow the same format. I'll start it with the comments, and I'll put each state and how it's going to go.